Hello, KLV Podcast listeners. Welcome back to HQ, where the team of KLV Weddings shares their thoughts on business, marketing, and more. I am your showrunner, Bryan. Let's get into it.
Okay, welcome back to another episode of the KLV Podcast. So, just me today, but I do have some really great questions from our showrunner, Bryan. So, throw it up there, Bryan. What are we talking about today? What is the process from getting an inquiry to meeting to booking? What's the process? Okay, that's a loaded question, B. It's a really long and short process, actually. So it starts from, in our case, right? So I'm going to speak not like law, but like how we do it here at KLV Wedding Studios. By the way, we are going to poll all month. And let me know in the comments, what do you prefer? I value your input as well. So we are going with either KLV Studios or KLV Weddings. Why? Because we are going to go through a rebrand pretty soon where it's just going to, whatever's going to make the most sense and what's going to speak best to our clients, potential clients. Okay. Let me know in the comments. Let me know right now. Vote KLV Weddings or KLV Studios. And let me know your reason why. I would love to hear it. Okay. In the comments. So be asked these questions. What is the process of getting from inquiry to meeting to booking? All right, let's break it down. I'm not going to attempt to answer it fully as that would take forever. Okay. But I'm going to try to give you some actionable things that you can do and try to make this show as useful as possible, but also speak from my own experience. So don't take it as law, as concrete. We're also changing the way we do things from 10 years ago to 5 years ago to now to even next month, okay? The process for us of simply getting an inquiry, okay? So simply, when you say that means somebody has hit the contact form or whatever, found some way to contact you and has inquired, okay? So if they've already inquired, that means they like something about you. So it could be, with our case, it's usually our photos. So they like what they see. And it also depends on where they're inquiring. If they're inquiring and they say that they came from Instagram, right there, you'll know, well, what's Instagram for? What am I doing on Instagram that got me this lead? Okay. So with us, we daily post on our stories and we daily post on our feed. We keep it very true to brand. So what you see on the feed, because it's more concrete and because it's, for lack of a better term, infinite or stays there forever, basically, versus stories that stays there for only a day, we have to be more strategic. We have to be more conscious about what goes on the feed. Versus stories, it still has to be within brand, within spec, but we have a little bit more freedom and flexibility there where we don't have to feel married to any ideas or concepts or images or people or things like that. So we can definitely be more experimental in stories and we can flood it as much as possible, or we can have nothing. So it's really kind of like a toss-up. But for the most part, we try to be consistent, okay? I think what's going to be the bridge between inquiry to meeting to booking is consistency, or what's a better term than consistency, because that is kind of general. I think a better term is building trust, or maybe having each of these chains, in the events and the links and touch points. I call them touch points because each time you have a touch point or potentially a touch point with the client, that either enforces or encourages positively or negatively the amount of trust the client has with you. So, for example, if they've already hit the button to inquire, there's something about you that they like. You've built that much trust, okay? From there, after inquiring, what we do is I manually send out an email and I manually check if we're available or not. Because number one, we need to just make sure that we're available for the client, right? So the most important thing in your inquiry form is, are we available? The second most important thing is probably the venue, right? We're kind of looking at venues that we know we can serve well and that we know that would fit in the type of collection or portfolio that we want to keep presenting out into the world. Okay. From there, if it's a yes on the email, and the email contains a couple of key things. So our email is, you can really say whatever you want, but first and foremost, I send our packages in this email. So they've liked us, so we get a good lead, right? So the next part is to figure out, can you afford us? Are you a good fit for us? And we're just trying to figure out through email if you're our client. If we're going to work well together. So it's not always about money though. Okay. I don't really want to put that out there. It has to check off certain boxes for me. There's a money component and there's also an emotional component and there's also is this client for us? I'm the first filter for now in terms of who passes through the door and who is okayed to go and be a client of either one of my leads, Jenna or Kevin, right? And I'm thinking about, I want to filter. I want to make sure that the client who comes through the door is going to be favorable in terms of my lead, because I'm thinking about the long-term repercussions of, is this client one going to be a joy to work with, easy to work with? Is it something, maybe it's a new challenge for my leads, for either Kevin or Jenna, and I think it's going to be a good match? Because if I don't feel that it's a good match, I won't okay it. Okay? So, and it's not like I say, no, you're not a good fit for the client. I will be tactful and politically correct about things, but I do want to make sure that everything's a fit. Okay. So that's what happens in an email. If and when the client says to themselves, yes, the price is good, everything's good, everything I'm reading is good, and they're like, cool, I'm going to schedule a meeting, that's when I kind of know it's going to be in the bag for us, because I know that when I get to the meeting part, they're either going to say hell yes or no, it's not for me. And that's a good thing, because it's kind of the last thing that just needs to be checked off in the box. I put so much content between the collections of Kevin and Jenna and the rest of the team onto the site. I put so much transparency or I try to show exactly who we are as people from start to end, or from start to finish, in terms of what you get at the end of the day, that it's really just a matter of, when we come to sit down with each other, do you like us or not, like as people, right? Most of the time when clients are coming in, that's really their only question. So a lot of the questions that they do ask are just to kind of like feel like they're covering their bases, but really they're just there for the emotional aspect, am I going to work well with you? Can we work together? Do I like you as a person, like the way that you even talk or dress or all those things, right? So it's really rare. I would say about 90% of the meetings that we go to, and it's usually, currently right now, I meet most of our clients, but it'll be between me and Kevin. And 90% of the time we are booking our clients. So that's a great testament to what goes on, like all before just even sitting down with the client. I like to do most of the work with me not even being there. I don't have to be present for that. The stuff that I have to be present for is just an emotional connection or an emotional sort of feeling of support for the client by the time I'm meeting them. if I haven't done that for the client, it's not necessarily my fault. It could be a client who's, for lack of a better term, who's kind of lazy in their approach and how they're hiring their vendors. And that just could be because maybe they're not particularly lazy, but maybe they haven't spent the time or research. But if I was going to spend like thousands of dollars, I would be looking up every single thing about them, to figure out if they were the right type of photographer for me. I would be trying to figure out everything. Am I going to like them? I'm going to have to be with them like 8 hours plus all day. So I have to like them as a person. So, by the time I'm actually sitting down with them in person or even online, most of the work is done already. Okay, so that was a really long-winded, I still didn't even share everything that I do, but that's the gist, okay? All right. What's your second question, B? Let's get into it. What is the language when speaking during a meeting? Good thing. These are like chronological. Cool. What is the language? That's a super broad question. I would ask you to clarify that. But so I'm going to just assume. Okay. Sorry. The language. What is the language? How would I break that? How would I answer that? The language is friendly, confident, relatable, non-imposing. I let them make, I don't know. Well, it's not that I let them make the first move. Like I just sit there and let them ask me questions. No, I have a set way about how I go up during the meeting. I have here's a way that can guide me. So usually it starts with gratitude, thank you for coming in. And I feel like when I'm in that meeting or I'm in that space, because you do have to mentally lock in, focus in. There's something about me that becomes very extroverted. I'm still me, but I'm definitely probably my most extroverted self in a meeting or during a consultation. I'm not pushy, I'm not salesy, and I kind of find the balance between selling ourselves and not, because I don't feel that I'm salesy. I don't feel that I'm aggressive in my sales pitch or anything like that. I feel very just like matter of factly. That's kind of how I am. I actually recorded a raw meeting of myself. I haven't watched it yet, but during an online meeting, because I definitely want to train the rest of our team to kind of take my place at some point, or at least share what we do, so that they could carry the torch, so to speak. So yeah, I try to find a balance, and I need to be able to turn and pivot and whatnot if the client is not like a natural fit for me personality wise. So if they're quieter, I'm quieter. I don't try to impose my personality upon them. I let it become sort of like a balance. It's a dance, so to speak. If they go there, if they're like, if they go there with me and if language permits and all that stuff, I never curse during a meeting, but I don't find it offensive if they do, like if they curse. I never curse during a meeting. And I try to keep it professional above anything else. I want to be friendly and I want to be on their level, but I do want to not be, how should I say, like I still want to remain professional. I don't want to be too close. And this is something I learned from Kevin. He's like, I don't want to be too close, as if like they feel that I'm their best friend or something like that. That's a great feeling, but at the same time, it doesn't send the right message, especially if you're trying to treat all of your clients equally, you're trying to remain professional, you're trying to establish a standard, you're not trying to be taken advantage of. That could be a problem too sometimes if you're not careful. So it's about finding a balance, and that comes, I think, with time. but the language is definitely confident. I'm leading them towards one thing to the next because they really don't know. And if they're asking me questions, most of the time in my case, because I've shared so much information on the website and the price guide, I know that these questions are just for them to feel that they've asked something, that they've done their due diligence. But really, I know what they need to know, and I'm just letting them know. So I think that comes with confidence and experience. And the only way to get there is to just do it. You know what I mean? Okay. Next question, B. I hope I answered these. I kind of go all over the place. Where in the process of inquiry, meeting, or booking does price get brought up? Okay. So I don't have any prices. We don't have any prices anywhere listed on the site, but I would hope that the work that my leads present and that the collection presents and the brand is upscale. I do want to make sure that the language, the work shown, the way that our social media is run, the way that we talk, the way that we present ourselves in any online media is upscale, whatever that means, right? So take that as you will. Do some clients who have a low budget inquire with us? Sometimes. And then it irritates Kevin. He's like, what the hell? Does my work look cheap? But sometimes people just don't know. It's not to be offended. You don't need to be offended. But I feel that as somebody who's running a business off of art, you kind of need to be aware of what you're attracting with your art. Does that make sense? Okay. So where does price come up? It comes up in the email. So when you inquire, I will let you know what our prices are in that email. And then during a meeting, they can be reminded of it, but they know. They know, they've seen the price because number one, after going, wow, these photos are cool, they go, how much is it? Of course they know. So during a meeting, they're only being reminded. I'm not surprising them with price, right? They should know fully what they're getting into before we even meet. Because if I'm meeting with you and you don't know the price, it's a waste of time potentially. Because if you go, oh shit, it's like $2,000 or whatever, which is not a lot in the wedding photography world, and you can't afford it, it's a big waste of time. So number one, in the email. So if I can filter in that area, I need to find out where we're playing, basically. If I can filter you there, I'll filter you there. Next question, B. All right. Uncertain clients. What to do? What to do with uncertain clients? This is a broad question too. Do you mean that they can't afford it or they're not sure? So I'll just take it for as it is. So if a client is unsure, say we've gone through the whole process and they're unsure of something, which did happen mostly in the past when we were still figuring out language. We were still figuring out our offering and making sure that everything was matching up, lining up. Not so much nowadays. It's either a yes or a no, like a hell yes or a no. Uncertain client. What I would do now is after a meeting, we send them a summary of everything that we talked about. I always have everything on paper, so to speak, or in writing so that nothing is miscommunicated. Every phone call that I do, I always follow up with an email or something. That way, like I said, nothing is miscommunicated. If they're uncertain, I just let them be uncertain. Like the dates that we have, there's only so many dates, right? So the date that they're inquiring for, I'm like, yeah, so here it is. Here's our price. Here's, how you can save the date, whatever. I'll send it to you right away, right after our meeting, and you let me know. And sometimes clients will be like, is there a time limit on how soon I should let you know? I was like, well, you guys already met with me, so your foot's in the door, so to speak. If another client inquires about your date, I will, as a courtesy, let you know. So right away, it feels Like I still have, so to speak, the power in my hands, because I don't ever want to seem that I'm thirsty, which we're not, honestly. When you're first starting out, you're probably going to take everything you can get, right? Because one, you're trying to figure out who is your clientele, who's your base, and you're trying to figure out all this stuff. Nowadays, I'm just like, yeah, like this is what it is. You let me know, balls in your court, basically. I'll let you know if somebody inquires for your date, and then, by then it's a first come, first serve. And I do put this disclaimer on everything that I can. I will say, we give out packages and prices all the time and quotes all the time. And by the time that you inquire back again, like if you're unsure or you're thinking about it or whatever, you're uncertain, another client may come in and inquire for your date and may put down a save the date deposit. So it's first come, first serve to treat everybody fairly. If you've already met with me, that I tell them that, like, if you've met with me already, cool. Like, you've got your foot in the door. I remember you. I know your name. And if I like you, I'm probably going to favor you more. Right. So I tell them that, and I'm very transparent with it. And they're like, okay, thank you. And I'm like, cool. So everything should feel respectful. Like, I'm not pressuring them. They don't have any power over me. Like, they don't need to do that to me, like threaten me or something like that. Oh, we're going to go over there. I'm like, go. You know what I mean? Like, we have so many inquiries. I don't feel thirsty. I don't feel threatened. And I feel confident that in the end, we're going to work with the best people for my team. So I don't, like, that's what I do. That's how I mentally handle uncertain people. If you're uncertain, maybe there's something on my end that I didn't communicate, and that's a lesson for me, and go, and that requires more investigation. But for the most part, I'm not really worried about it. I've checked a lot of boxes so far. There's still boxes that I can't check in terms of, have I answered all the questions that a potential client may have, because the marketplace is always changing. But, so far, so good. Next question. Okay. How do you close or seal the booking? It's pretty rare that I would collect money on the day of meeting. I like to present them with our quote in an email in writing, and then our agreement, so you see everything. And I tell them, hey, read this. Read that over first, review it. If you're angsty or anxious to book right now and save the date, yeah, we can do that. But I always urge them to read and review our agreement, because I want people to know what they're getting into. And other than that, we accept credit card, direct deposit, cash, not really cash, all the normal ways of accepting payment. And we save the date, and then we collect the rest later on. And we do 2 weeks before the actual wedding date. So we make sure to get paid before we even show up. And that's because sometimes you could show up, and this has happened before a long time ago, that we weren't paid, and you've already done the work. So this is a protection on our end, that we have to show up and do the thing. And we're obligated to do that, to get paid, versus to do the work first and then maybe not get paid and try to chase people down at the end of the night. On the wedding day, I don't want to do that. Nobody wants to do that. And then we sign the agreement. Everything happens mostly all online. And then I send out the email or the text to the team and say, hey, save this date in your calendar. It's now booked. And then they're in our system. And lastly, follow-ups. So follow-ups, I'm assuming if they didn't book right away or something like that. I don't really do follow-ups. I feel like I make a very compelling meeting. I say everything I need to say usually. Everything is there. Everything is available for them to make the decision. Now it's just whether it's emotional or financial or whatever for them. I let them deal with that. We get so many inquiries that I don't feel that I need to follow up. Kevin will maybe disagree with me. He'll say, shouldn't we follow up or something like this? And I'm like, Yeah, but it kind of just gives me more work. And in the end, we have such a high booking rate that I don't, and then people would be like, well, why don't you want to make it 100%? I was like, well, okay. I don't know. It's more work for me. I would like to follow up in a way that could be automated. But honestly, I'm doing so many other tasks. It's just one task that I don't feel warrants my attention. You know what I mean? We just had a client who, big client, and took them more than a month to decide, I'd say. Maybe about a month to decide, which is kind of long. A typical booking time, if we're waiting, is about 20 days max. 20 days max, right? So this client maybe went on for like 27 days, something like this. And I'm like, fine, it's fine. I don't worry so much about it, because there's always more coming in. So, I don't know. I guess if we had less volume, I would follow up. But there's so many coming in, I'm not really too worried about it. Now that the Rona is here, we're getting less inquiries, of course, right? That's just to be expected overall. But it's still cool that we're still booking 90%. That's the percentile that we're booking at. So, I know that our system is working. Can we improve it? Yeah, for sure. But I think those things we find out organically, and we just make the changes that we need to make. Right now, we're making changes, right? Like, we have time to rebrand, like I talked about with rebranding. Let me know now. Vote right now. KLV Weddings or KLV Studios. We're talking about rebranding. We're talking about revamping and making things more smoother and making things more functional, things like this. So yeah, bottom line, in terms of sales, there's no right way. You've heard a lot of things like always be closing. Well, sometimes it doesn't work in this way. Definitely on the weddings industry side, an aggressive approach for us doesn't work. And I would say that you should do a style that works for you. In the end, it's whatever works. For us, this works. I'm sharing what works. It's one way to do it. There's 1,000 ways to skin a cat or something like that. Terrible saying. But bottom line is, like, you need to make it your own. You need to experiment. You need to go with your gut. And sometimes you need to break your own rules and make new ones. So with sales, the only way to really know is to start, is to do, which I know is scary. And I remember when I was sitting down to meet clients for the first time, and this is when maybe I would sit side by side with Kevin before, and I was not who I am today. And I would just listen, and I would kind of jump in whenever I could make a case for being emotional, or just add some oomph, some added fill in the gap for him in the meeting. And slowly I started to create my own style, especially when I ran Bells and Laces, which was like a lower end sort of wedding photography company, right? And I was just trying to prove my worth. I developed a style there, and then later on I developed it even more and evolved it even more once I started to represent KLV Photography, right, when in my meetings and stuff. So and it was all kind of nerve-wracking, but at the same time I knew every meeting was an opportunity to get better. And I would also feel like it would drain me. Like every meeting, if I just had one meeting a day, it would drain me. Nowadays, I'm getting a lot more better at it in terms of bolstering my energy and maintaining energy through. And that's probably also too, I'm taking better care of my body. And And now it's kind of like a fun thing, you know? So to get from that point of like nervous and I need this money and, or I need this client or whatever. Oh man, I fucked that up, or I said something weird, or I'm not me, or I'm not feeling me. All that stuff, you just got to get through it until you find that the jacket fits and things flow out of your mouth and you've said it 1,000 times and you're just confident. But the only way to find out is to do it. You got to do it. You got to just do. Okay, we almost missed this question. I actually missed another one too, so I'll answer that right now. Are we leading them with questions or letting them come to us? I think I kind of answered this, but just to clarify, are we leading them with questions? Yes, I am definitely leading them with questions. Actually, before every meeting, I actually have our clients fill out a form so I can get to know them a little bit logistically. Because during the meeting, I actually will create a timeline for them and we'll talk about the logistics. You know, they're like, well, how many hours do I need? You know, do I need 8, 10, 12, what? And so I like to cover the logistics first. And there's a form that I have them fill out that lets me know a little bit about them. And some of these questions that I ask them aren't really even necessary, you know, but it kind of rounds it out. There's sort of like a filler that you need sometimes to get conversation going, like how many bridesmaids and groomsmen, like how big is the wedding party? How many guests do you have? Like I ask some like logistical questions like that. Does it really affect the way that we will serve them that day? Kind of, but it kind of just gives me talking points. And I can then talk about the wedding day. I can talk about, well, you know, the bigger party that you have, you know, we actually will plan for more time in between things because the more people that you have, the more on point and that you need to be with your scheduling and your timing versus, you know, maybe you only have 2 groomsmen. That's super simple, you know. So those are ways that we can make the whole meeting seem more conversational instead of being like, this is how much it is, and I want you to pay me this, and you know what I mean. So to be more conversational versus salesy. Okay, here's another question that I missed. What are the rules on negotiation? Okay, another open, broad, very broad question. All right, so I don't really negotiate with clients. What we can do is we can maybe trade some things that I feel that are a fair trade. But the words negotiation do not really come up. People who are looking to negotiate with me say from a cultural standpoint or something, I don't do that. I don't like that. I don't come from that world. I present what we have and that's what it is. So if we do come up on any negotiations, I will usually double check it with Kevin. He's more of a negotiator than I am, but I don't like that. I actually block him from negotiating most of the time because I feel like when you're negotiating, you're trying to just make things fit all the time. And when you're first starting out, you're doing negotiations all the time because you want work, you want to get paid, you want to pay your bills, and you're negotiating one thing for another, right? And I feel that the credibility that we have now, the standing that we have now, the trust that I have been able to build online and offline with this company, I don't feel that I need to negotiate. This is the price, right? Like I don't go to Apple and try to negotiate for my iPhone. We may try to get some kind of deal with, like, say we're talking to some, you know, T-Mobile employee and be like, you know, is this for that? But in the end, you realize, hey, pay now, pay later. That's really all it is. So I don't like to play games. I like to keep things very clear and open and honest. And so I will just tell them, you know, this is what it is. You know, if it comes down to, like, say, for example, tax and things like that, I'm like, well, you know, I got to charge you tax. You know, this is a legitimate company. You know, this is a legitimate company with employees. And if anything, in terms of negotiation, we know most of the negotiation type of questions, they don't really say that. They say, do you offer a discount? Do you offer a bundle discount because I'm getting your photo and your video, or I'm only doing this, or I'm doing this and that? And I'm like, no, I do not discount, my company, because my team members, I don't discount them because I don't discount my family. And then they're like, ooh, because they, right when you hit that emotional base, for some reason, if somebody's asking me a question like that, then I haven't communicated that there are humans that have lives that are supporting themselves with this work. If you're asking me to discount that, you're asking me to discount their work, So and it's not that they mean to be malicious. I know this. It feels like that when you're asked to discount something or to negotiate. And that's why it's so important to do the work beforehand, that you put out the right message that you're not here to negotiate. You're here to do a service, and it costs this much to do this service. And to me, it's a form of respect. If you're asking for a discount for what we're doing, I feel like you're not respecting who we are. And that could be my fault in that you're not receiving the message, which is, this is who we are, this is how much it is, period. Okay? So I hope that answers your questions. Let's get back to the show. Okay, cool. So kind of a short show today, but I hope you got some useful stuff out of there. Join us next time. We'll have Kevin in the house, and we'll do another show for you guys, okay? I hope you're staying healthy. You're wearing your mask wherever you go outside. You're washing your hands. You're being responsible. You're not putting anyone else at risk. And you're staying sharp. Hope you're staying sharp out there. For you photographers who are watching the show, or entrepreneurs, you're staying sharp with your mind. Your mind is your best tool in your bag. And if that goes dull, don't freak out. Just know that you need to, deload or reload your week and start reading stuff, start watching stuff, start, getting your mind sharp again, because you never know when opportunity can strike or make itself available to you. You want to be ready to say yes to that opportunity. Okay? All right. Cool. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And we will see you next time here at the KLV Podcast. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the KLV Podcast. Learn more about us at kevinlavouweddings.com or on Instagram @KevinLavou @KLV Podcast. You can rate and review us on iTunes and watch us on YouTube. Join us next time, sharing more of our experiences and lessons.